We're stuck. There we are. It's working. I love it when it's working. Hi, I'm Lynette Louise, otherwise known as the Brain Broad, and this is the Virtual Leadership Summit, Seeking the Path. I called it Seeking the Path because I wrote a book, as I've mentioned in some of the other interviews, called The Seven Senses of Leadership. And it's the Brain Broad's Guide to Leadership Sensibilities. Okay, now what does that mean for us, and why am I having such varied guests? Because your information comes into you and out of you via your senses, so your hearing, your sight, all of that stuff. But the part that's often forgotten is the beliefs and the willingness to receive information. And that's where the media world is phenomenal. They're great at making sure that we are paying attention. And sometimes, or actually always, many more people are paying attention to the media world than they are to those who have positioned themselves up there as spiritual leaders or thought leaders. And so what I thought would be so wonderful would be to talk to some of the people that I know, that I met along the way as I sort of journeyed through my various incarnations, and people that I really respect and admire and think have something to share. With that in mind, we are going to speak with Simon Rakoff. Now, Simon is really special as a comedian, which he is, and he's from Canada, and he's Jewish. He's a Jewish comedian from Canada, which apparently there aren't very many of. What's special about him, and always has been special about him, is that his humor is quite intelligent. The stuff he says has a lot to do with, well, let's put it this way, his CD, I believe it's called Surrounded by Idiots. Is that correct, Simon?
It is.
Okay, so you are always thinking, it's not just body function humor, it's not just humor of the sexes, but it's the kind of humor that actually requires that you think about the world you live in. So welcome to the summit, and thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you, Lynette. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. It's exciting. I haven't seen you in a long time. And I love that you're eating a bagel. It seems perfectly correct.
Well, it wasn't specifically for this interview. It's just the timing of it. Remember, originally we were on 11 o'clock my time, and that's 3 hours earlier. And now it's, 11 o'clock your time, and it's time for my bagel.
Yeah, so what Simon's telling you is that I made a mistake. The Brain Broad forgot to do time zones. And so he's been so lovely and waiting for us. Thank you.
Not a problem.
I appreciate it very much. Okay, so let's dive into this a little bit. We'll talk about who you are and your sort of your backstory as a comedian. I'm just going to jump right into the 3 questions that I'm asking everyone first, though.
Okay, please.
Okay, so every single guest on this summit has to answer these 3 questions. First question is, what is your definition of leadership?
Well, I'd say there's 2. There's negative leadership, which is authoritarianism and forcing people through leverage and fear to do what you want them to do. And then there's legitimate leadership, which I would say is setting an example and an agenda and making it inspiring enough that people want to follow and deal with the same issue you do.
I love that. Okay. So, and since you called one negative leadership and one legitimate leadership, I'm going to hazard a guess that that you think that the positive form of leadership is real leadership.
No, they will all bow to me and my iron will. No, of course I do.
Okay. So then
the fools suspect nothing of what my agenda is. No, absolutely, Lynette. And I think that a lot of people are taken in by that sort of, I look at Donald Trump and people look at this guy and think there's a leader, and I think there's a schmuck that everybody should run away from. But that is certainly historically has always been a style of leadership that there have been enough people that want to, follow that. For myself, sorry, I spat on you a little. I'm going to wipe that off. There you go.
Here, let's wipe our spit off together.
There you go. In my opinion, the inspirational people in history have tended to be people who don't look at themselves, but look at the goal.
Right.
You know, so
they have greater longevity as far as they have a historical presence, and they're not vilified later. So maybe one should think about that as they make their choices.
I put it in the sense of nobody knows the name of the guys who nailed Jesus up. At the time they were in charge.
Right. I love that.
Right?
Right. No, you're right. Okay, so with all that in mind, what's your question 2? What is your definition of success?
My definition of success, again, 2 parts. The first part is deciding what you want. And the second part is trying to achieve that. Because I think a lot of people think of themselves as success, think of their lives as a success, but they have never actually done the first part of deciding what they want. So their success is measured by what they were told they should feel success is. And they always wonder, why am I not feeling right about this when I'm doing so well?
I love that, because that's one of the things I bring up a lot. Very often people, they sell out for the societal idea of what success should look like. A good example of that might be in parents thinking their child has to go to college, and knowing the whole time that they're forcing something that their child doesn't want. And so it's an uncomfortable thing. And even though they can bring it up in a party setting and say, my child is a summa cum laude, they in their heart know that they're pushing something that the child didn't want. So that's just a parent example, but I could come up with many. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I mean, I know, for instance, friends who are lawyers who say, next life I won't be a lawyer. Another one who shops all weekend to remind himself why he works 80 hours a week on a job he doesn't like. Whereas I have never had that kind of money, but I've spent my whole life doing what I want. You know, I've been a comic since I was 17 years old.
Yeah, what a joyous way to live. Okay, so let's go on that, describing the path then. So we're now at the 3rd question, which is we've kind of dived in there already. What would you see as the path to success given these 2 definitions?
I would say, number 1, think carefully about what you want your life to be. Because what I think people don't understand is they don't have a specific, like, how do I see the person I want to be and what I'm going to be doing with my life? They go, for instance, I want to be rich. Instead of thinking, well, what do I have to do to be rich? I have to, step on some people maybe that I don't want to do. I have to give up a little bit of my soul and morals. I have to work at a job I hate for my entire life, Mm-hmm. So instead of, so they have more stuff. Maybe that will make them happy, but that's not the thought process that goes into it, right? Whereas what I think off the top is, you know what I love? I love when people laugh. I love hearing people laugh, like every time it happens, it feels good. There's never a time where I'm going, who cares what these people think,
It's like orgasm. It's always good.
Exactly. Yeah, even a bad night is right smack dab good. So it's like, I want to be famous, somebody might think. And to me, I'd think, no, that would be awful to be famous. You can't go anywhere without people hassling you. You're in a bad mood. You got to go, hi, nice to meet you, even though you don't want to meet them, because otherwise they go on the social media and say what an asshole this guy was, because after a 14-hour flight, he didn't stand for selfies with you and your friends,
Right.
I'm just saying, I just think people don't think about what their goal is. And I would say the second part, in terms of...
but I want to interrupt you on that with a concrete example of that, because it comes from my life and from back when you and I were comedians together. Mm-hmm. So I started running rooms and hiring comedians in. And at first, that was a great idea. I thought, wow, then I'll get to learn from people who are good instead of all the amateurs, because I was learning humor I didn't want to learn. Mm-hmm. And it was a great idea. I did learn from higher level people, but the next thing I knew, everybody wanted me to hire them, and I was turning into an administrator. And guess what? I didn't want to be.
Right.
Right. So knowing what you want to be and how you want to live is huge. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about in that first part. What's your second part?
Well, again, that's why I never got into the business side of comedy. I mean, I had opportunities, but I just went, but that's not what I like.
Right.
And the second part of the equation, I would say, is trust yourself.
Nice.
I'm not saying don't listen to people who have advice, but advice is easy and following advice is different. And so, listen to people who know things or you respect or like. Assume that your friends have your best interests at heart when they give you advice. But in the end, do what you think in your head is right. Because they don't know. Nobody knows anything.
Right.
They're just guessing based on what they know. But you have to live your own life.
That's very true. So let's talk a little bit about the medium that you use, about comedy. So you do use pretty intelligent jokes, and your style of humor is somewhat cerebral.
Well, me smart and write good.
Okay, be smart and write good. So here's my question. Have you ever had somebody come up to you and having taken what you said as gospel when in fact it was analogous and you didn't want them to receive it as if it was some kind of piece of information to live by, or the opposite?
No, I think, I like to think that sometimes my jokes open minds and perspectives to points of view they may not have had before. In fact, I have a scientific theory that what a joke actually is linking two things that you already had in your brain but had never put together before. And I get there 1 second before they do, so that it's a surprise and they laugh.
I like that.
That's my scientific theory of it. So I don't think I actually teach anybody anything, but I do think I it's like I used to watch Chappelle's show, right? And now I watch Amy Schumer's sketch show. Mm-hmm. And both those shows, it's not like the things they say I've never thought of, but I've never quite seen them from the perspective of the black guy or the woman. You know what I mean? So it sort of opens my brain up a little bit to see things from their point of view in that way. So that's what I like comedy to do. It's not so much I'm going to change somebody's mind who is set, but I might make them go, oh, I never thought of it that way.
Right. And another thing comedy does is it removes the resistance that you might have. When you're laughing, you're not resistant. And so when you're feeling light and happy and joyous, then you can hear these perspectives, these different ideas, and actually contemplate them later in a new way, as opposed to, say, in an event where you're going, hey, you're not going to teach me that.
No, laughter is understanding. You still may not agree with the point of view, but if you laughed, you're at least saying, okay, I get what you're saying. As opposed to when you're actually having a debate, a person is so closed off, they don't even hear what the other side is saying.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about your CD. Why'd you call it that?
Surrounded by Idiots? I thought it was a funny and provocative title, right? And in fact, the cover is this. The face palm. And because some of my bits are about, dumb people and how they're everywhere and how, they're jokes, but everybody knows people who are stupid. And, as a society, there's lots of that all the time, right? I mean, not even talking about idiot individuals. I'm just saying there's money in treating people as though they're stupid.
Yes. And another thing is that one of the things I miss about doing primarily stand-up as opposed to doing this thought leader, marketing, all that stuff, brain healing, all of those things, doctor. One of the things I miss about stand-up is not having the rules that say you can't call someone stupid, because when you take those rules away, you're able to bring this perspective connection that you can't otherwise bring. And comedy affords us a forum to do that.
Well, it's the ancient job of the comedian that he breaks the societal social rules to, keep things in perspective. That's the whole idea, in the court, everybody bowed to the king except the jester who made fun of him. And as long as it's funny, he gets to live.
What Well, you get to live, Simon, because you're always funny.
But I'm saying it's the license, right? You know, it's like with great power comes great responsibility. Like, you know, if you're not funny, then you're just an asshole. You can say you're a comedian, but if nobody's laughing, you're a dick.
Exactly. But you made a statement that I really want to hone on before
my phone is
I
ringing.
just sort of give you the floor.
Hang on. And I can ignore it. No, I'll call him back. My
Good,
old
thank you.
Schuster. You remember Schuster?
Oh, say hi when you talk to him.
I will.
Okay, so
But that'll be later.
Okay, now let's see if the brain broad can remember what her question was. Yes, I can. You said with great power comes great responsibility, and this is something I've grappled with a lot. I think that when we're
That's from this guy.
Right. Okay. Well, I want from you how that's played out, because I think that when we get people in this receptive place via music or comedy, that we do have a responsibility to at least draw attention to things that are of value. What are your thoughts on that, and how do you deal with it?
Well, again, I see plenty of acts who go up there, get the crowd laughing, and then make fun of the lower people, right? You got to punch up in comedy for it to mean something.
Awesome. That's awesome. Punch up. I love that.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not an original thought. I'm saying, you know, you speak to power. The court jester makes fun of the king in the court. He doesn't make fun of the peasants outside. Why would you?
Right. Right. Okay. So how do people see you, find you, learn about you? Share a little of that, and then maybe a nugget that's.
Well, I have more bagels. They should come over and have one.
Do you have anything coming up you'd like people to know about in November, or how do they get your CD? Any of that?
Oh, well, go to my website, simonrakoff.com. And right there, you click on the cartoon of me, and it goes to my CD where you can buy it, or all the download links are there, you know.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
yeah. No, by all means, it's worth a listen. It turned out great. I was very happy.
Good.
You know, it's the first thing I've ever made.
Well, and it's good. I've checked it. It's awesome.
Oh no, I'm very happy with it. But I'm saying, good. You know, I've been on a million shows, but I was never the guy who put it together myself. So I'm very pleased.
So just so they know who they were listening to, you want to give them a little background on you, or do you want to stay mysterious?
Oh, I don't care. Popular local comedian Simon Rakoff was born in a foreign country, but has lived here his entire life. I started comedy in 1978 and have done it happily with the enthusiasm of a newcomer and the experience of a master.
Okay, that rocks. And you didn't even know I was going to ask that. That really rocked. I know you've done that.
Well, I talk for a living, you know.
Okay, gorgeous. One tangible thing. You're going to give advice about, you know, one of the problems I find in leadership talks and in leadership summits is that everybody talks about how and concepts, and it's all very what you should be like, how you should embrace your thoughts. But I want something tangible. So when you think in terms of your whole career, how did you manage to keep doing what you love to do all this time? What's a tangible tip?
A tangible tip is you will be discouraged. I'm not going to say don't get discouraged, because that's unrealistic. It's like dieting, right? People, you know, they eat a chocolate bar and they go, well, screw it then, and, you know, I'll eat 6 pizzas. You know, when you have a failure, which is inevitable, and in comedy, it's minute to minute, the point is keep going. I mean, I actually say this to young comics who will sometimes, you know, after a bad joke, they'll go, whoa, you didn't like that one. And I say, you know what? It's none of their business how it's going. Right. As far as they're concerned, you're killing. Just pretend, you know, like no magician goes, oh my God, doves in my coat.
Besides, you don't know, they might have been smiling. And
well, that's my point.
Yeah.
You know, and you're the one up there. So present a confident front, whether you believe it or not. You know, they're listening to you. So take advantage.
Right. Right. Wow, this has been great. Simon Rakoff, you rock just as much now as you ever did. I'm so happy to know you. Thank you
too, baby.
Thanks for being willing to be on the show. And for anybody who's looking for my book, please make sure you check Amazon. It's easy to get, The 7 Senses of Leadership, the Brain Broad's Guide to Leadership Sensibilities, because you can't get information in if you don't take one of those pathways. You might as well know how they work.
That's the title?
That's the title.
So the book is what, 3 sentences? Because you...
the
title took all the time, all the space. The title ends on page 33, actually. You got to...
That's how it works when you're in this part of the world. I liked it better in some ways when it was really brief and punchy, but you know, you got to play the game that's...
No, hey, I have absolute faith you know what you're doing.
All right, darling. Bye.
Nice to see you, Lynette. Bye.
You too.